In this video, we're going to look at how to use oil pastels to create accurate color and how to show different textures. And texture refers to how something were to feel if you were to touch it. So with this kiwi fruit, I need to focus on how to create this fuzzy texture that's on the outside of my kiwi, and then a more smooth texture for the inside of the fruit. So the first thing I need to do is plan out my drawing. And I like to begin by creating a box for where my shapes, the main shapes, are going to go. You can see I have my paper lined up right against my image, and I'm dragging my pencil over from the top of my shape right over onto my paper, making a line, dragging it over from the bottom of my shape and making a line. Now I can just readjust, line up my paper next to my image again, but this time just below it. And now I can find the right-hand side and the left-hand side of my shapes just by dragging my pencil down from the image onto my paper. So now I have two boxes where my shapes, my main shapes, are going to go. And this is going to make it much easier for me to sketch in my image. I know that they are the right size and the right scale and in the correct place. So now I'm going to go through and sketch in my main shapes. I'm paying close attention to the curves and trying to match them as closely to my image as possible. And now for the smaller shapes in my image and the details, I can repeat this step again. So I'm dragging my pencil over, I'm finding where the top and bottom of the core of the fruit is going to go, and I'm going to sketch that shape in. Now I have these seed shapes to draw in, and there are quite a few of them, so it can be a little bit confusing. So I'm going to pick a few spaced out in between, so you can see I'm just drawing in the ones that meet the corners of my inside shape first. I'm paying attention to the direction that they're pointing and how they radiate out from the center. So if I draw in a few of these first, then I can go back and fill in the shapes in between. Okay, so now I'm ready for oil pastels, and we again are focusing on trying to create accurate color. So although this kiwi fruit is green on the inside, there are actually lots of different shades of green. So I'm picking out the colors that I think I might use for this. So I've started with a lime green, then I have a darker green, and I noticed around the edges it starts to get more blue. It's a bluer green, so I'm going to pick out a blue as well. I'm also adding an orange because I can see just around the rind of the fruit, it does start to get a bit more brown, so a bit more orange. For the outside of the fruit, I'm including this mustardy yellow color. I can see there's some brown there as well. And very importantly, I am including white, and that is going to help me get lighter colors and all the highlights in my fruit. Now, unfortunately, my camera cut out here, so I just wanted to talk you through what I have done for the inside of my fruit. It is a very light green, but it's lighter than the light green that I have. So I created this color in the middle by adding a very thin layer of my lime green and then going on top of it with a white. So if you have a very light color, adding a white oil pastel on top of it can help brighten it and make it much lighter to match the color that you see in your fruit. So now I'm ready to work on the rest of my fruit here, the flesh of my fruit. And as you can see in my picture here, it goes from a light green to a darker green, and then it's sort of a bluish green. So what I'm doing right here on the outside is just adding my darker green and then a bit of blue. And what I plan on doing is working on top of it with my green to help blend all of those colors together, so I have a smooth transition and a smooth texture. So I'm working on top of that blue with my green color and just blending those colors together. I also see that there is a bit of a kind of brownish orange on the outside, so I'm going to lay that down, once again, my orange, and then I'm going to work on top of it again with my green. So I'm blending those colors and just creating a slightly different green color there. Now I'm going to take my lightest green again and just work on top of it and make sure everything's very blended, very smooth. I also see that there's a bit of speckling in my fruit, so I'm taking my white to add some of those details here. Finally, I'm going to work on the seed sections here, and they are sort of black, but there's a lot of blue going on as well. So I'm adding some blue first. I'll add a little bit of black where the seeds are, and then I plan to go over it again with some green and blend these together and try to match the color as accurately as I can. And you'll notice that I'm only working on one small section first, and that's because I want to get everything just right, and I'm really working through what colors I need. And once I'm happy with the result, then I can repeat those steps for the rest of my fruit drawing. Now that I've completed the cross section of my fruit, I can start on this other half of my drawing. And this is the outside of my kiwi fruit, which has a very fuzzy texture, which you can see in the image. And that's what I want to try to communicate with my oil pastels. So I will be using my oil pastels in a slightly different way this time. So rather than trying to get a smooth blended finish, I'm using small strokes first to try to replicate that fuzzy texture here. So I'm starting off with this mustardy yellow color first, and I'm just filling in with lots of little hatch marks. I'm also layering up the other colors that I've chosen for the outside of this fruit. So I'll be using a darker brown, still adding hatch marks just right on top of it. I've got some orange closer to the fruit there. And down in the right-hand corner, you can see that's where the light is hitting the kiwi fruit. So I've added some more white down there to show those highlights. And although I've filled this shape now, I'm not quite happy with the texture just yet. It's looking just a little too rough. So I'm going back over it with my oil pastel, and I'm going in the opposite direction of my hatch marks, just to smooth it out a little bit and make it look a little bit softer, more like my image, which has a fuzzier texture rather than this very rough texture. So you can go back over in the opposite directions of your hatch marks. That's called cross hatching, and that can help blend a little bit and make your texture look just a little bit softer. Now my drawing looks nearly complete, so I just want to go back over and add any details I might have missed, like the outside rind of this fruit here. So here's a close-up of my finished drawing, and you can see that I have blended my oil pastels to achieve accurate color, and I have used my oil pastels in different ways to show different textures. So on the inside of my fruit, I tried to achieve a more smoothly blended effect to get a smooth texture, and I used small hatch marks to get this fuzzy-like texture on the outside of my fruit. So when you're working on your oil pastel drawing, you should think about what colors will you need in order to blend colors together, achieve accurate color, but also what type of marks are you going to make in order to achieve the different textures that you see in your image.